Are you or were you worried about an unplanned pregnancy? Much can occupy your mind at this time of your life. There is something more painful than giving birth to a child, and that's not giving birth. Women who have aborted now have a new hope. For help in healing on post-abortion issues or for more information, contact the Office of Pro-Life Apostolate at the Catholic Diocese of Lafayette. Call 337-261-5607. Thank you for joining us. It's hurricane season, and we would like to open this program with a prayer written in 1957 by the then Bishop of Lafayette, Jules B. Jamard, after he experienced the effects of Hurricane Audrey. It's the prayer for the protection from hurricanes and storms.
O God, Master of this passing world, hear the humble voices of your children. The Sea of Galilee obeys your order and returns to its former quietude. You are still the master of land and sea. We live in the shadow of a danger over which we have no control. The Gulf, like a provoked and angry giant, can awake from its seeming lethargy, overstep its conventional boundaries, invade our land, and spread chaos and disaster. During this hurricane season, we turn to you, O loving Father. Spare us from past tragedies, whose memories are still so vivid, and whose wounds seem to refuse to heal with the passing of time. O Virgin Star of the Sea, our beloved Mother, we ask you to plead with your Son in our behalf, so that spared from the calamities common to this area, and animated with the true spirit of gratitude, we will walk in the footsteps of your divine Son to reach heavenly Jerusalem, where a stormless eternity awaits us. Amen.
Let's hope and pray this hurricane season we are all safe.
Lord, make me a means of your peace.
Welcome to Catholics Today. I'm Trista Littell, and today joining me is Carol Maynard with the Diocese of Lafayette. Today's program is the third of a three-part series bereavement program called Come to the Well. This is a day of prayer and reflection for those who've lost loved ones, and it was sponsored by the Diocese of Lafayette in partnership with Hospice of Acadiana. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Trista. It's good to be here. In the last two segments, we shared highlights of talks given by Bishop Douglas Desautels and Lori McGrew of Maddie's Footprints. Well, today we have our final presenter, Dr. Camille Pavey Claiborne. She's the author of Dying in God's Hands and Purses and Shoes for Sale. Her presentation is entitled The Power of Hope.
So the focus today is on hope, and hope is a pathway for dealing with some of the troubles that we have encountered and will encounter as we go through life. I think the bishop said it so eloquently to understand the redemptive power of suffering. I think Maddie's Footprints tell us about the action and the hope of helping others, tells us about suffering. And so to begin with, I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how I've tried to use use my life as a way to serve God and to increase my faith when times get tough. I have to back up a little bit because I'm a great storyteller, but I like to build the clock, so to speak. So just hang with me for a minute. I've been married to Bill since 1982, and I grew up in a family that had lots of kids, lots of babies, lots of aunts and uncles. My mom came from 10, my dad came from 10. I have 84 first cousins. So I just wanted to paint the picture that there was always someone pregnant, there was always a baby. My dad's a pediatrician. If we didn't care for kids at the house, then you went to the office and care for the kids there. And so we were reverently taught eloquently from my aunts and uncles and my parents about the gift of life, and eloquently taught about faith. And I think that foundation of being taught about my faith early helped me when I trembled and maybe lost my step in my faith, which I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I know that because of that strength when I was born and when I was reared, that helped me get through what I'm about to talk about. So we got married, and because I always thought I was going to be a mom, right? Because that's what you do. You get married and you have kids, and I wasn't able to have kids. So for a long time, I didn't feel like I was really worth what I was supposed to do, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, was get pregnant. And so I went through a time that I was mad at God and didn't attend church for a while and got frustrated, and I was doing things that weren't me, not maybe socializing with some of my friends, not attending their baby showers and celebrating the parts of their life that they were having because I wasn't having that. And those weren't me, but it was hard to see that at the time because I think I was just trying to figure it out. Well, we were in Houston after the third and last surgery. Make a long story short, in about mid-90s, we said, we've done just about everything we humanly can do. Maybe we just not run after things that we don't have and look at all the things that we do have. And that's when I returned to the church. I had left because a priest in Houston had said something goofy, like, what you're doing is against the Catholic faith. And I said, I'm trying to have a baby. How can it possibly be against the Catholic faith, right? So I'm on medicine that makes me talk like a man. Shouldn't bother you. It's okay with me. But anywho, it was just this weird time in our life. But we had this beautiful marriage and wonderful family. And why chase after something when all our gifts were right in front of us? So we prayed a lot, stopped all the medicines, let it be what it was supposed to be. And I remember praying to the Blessed Mother of the Grotto in Gran Cacho and saying, what now? What if I'm not going to have children, which I thought I was always going to have, what now? And I heard this click of this rosary, and I turned around and there was an elder gentleman behind me on the bench. And he had this big smile on his face. He said, whatever you just asked her, she's going to answer you. Okay, got it. Went home. 3 months later, I got a call from a friend of ours that says, geez, I'm doing a youth group and I have like 120 kids that we need a mom and dad. Would you and Bill do that? And I went, whoa. I told her I'd do anything, so we did. And we were the mother and dad of a youth group at a church of 120 kids. And it was a wonderful experience. And it was that experience that led me to, well, maybe I'll have kids in a different way. Maybe God will send me kids in a different way. About a month later, my uncle called and he said, listen, I need your help. There's this box in the attic that was your great aunt Edith Garland Dupre. And for those of you that know the Dupre Library, that was my grandmother's sister. And he had her boxes. And he said, I need you to go through these boxes and bring her things to the Dupre Library. They have a reserve room there. I just can't do it anymore. I'm getting older. I need you to do it. I said, I'll do it. I couldn't bring him there without reading everything in the box, right? And her diaries were in there. I knew her up until the age that she died. I was only 14 when she died, so I was very young. And I knew she didn't have kids, but I didn't really know why she didn't have kids. And I really didn't know that much about her other than she was a really sweet old aunt that loved on me, and everyone loved being around her, and she loved books, and she read to us, and you know, that seemed to suffice. So I started reading her diaries, and for those of you that know her, she worked at the university for about 43 years and then opened a bookstore called Sans Souci, which is now Sans Souci Gift Store across from the fire department downtown on Vermilion. I think it's Vermilion. And she wrote about generativity, not biological generativity, about taking God's will and love and generating love. And I was just taken back. And I read it and I thought, all right, then I'm supposed to take this and generate love and life. So that's what I'm going to do. So in 1996, I committed to that promise that I would generate love and life for everybody in my path. And I would do it in any way that God wanted me to do, and quit trying to fix life and do it myself, which I still kind of do. Sorry, you know, I'm still trying to fix things, but that I would begin to really take a different path. And so today you're going to get a gift. What I did was I wrote a little book on Pathways to Hope in that year, and dedicated all the funds to an Edith Garland Dupre Library scholarship at the university for men or women that go into ministry to do God's work. I'm also, besides being a nurse, a potter. And why I started being a potter is because in my job as Vice President of Nursing at Lafayette General, I had 1,000 employees and not every day was fun. Let's just say that. I wanted to slap some of them some days, and I wanted them to slap me back. And I wanted to slap some of the doctors some days. And I know they wanted to slap me back. And so I took up clay because I could go to a class and I could beat up on clay. Very good. And I just began to take it. But I began to study God as the potter and we as the clay, and really kind of get beyond the literal sense of what's in the Bible to kind of understand a little bit about that. And I have a demonstration about that. But at the beginning of today, we said, God told us, the pathway that we used in the brochure says, come to me. So the word come means I'm inviting you. Jesus doesn't command us to come, he invites us. And I feel like he invited me through my suffering to be a better disciple of him, okay? So come means an invitation. For today, it means you came today, and I'm very grateful. We're all grateful. The next word is come to. The word to means proximity. Jesus is come close. Get to know me. Come real close. Not over there, right here. Give up all your control and surrender to me. And then come to me, he's asking us for that relationship. And in many sense, in the group that I was in, I saw through these beautiful stories of sorrow, allowing me to enter into their sorrow and they enter into my sorrow, the relationship that Jesus sends to us through other people. Sometimes a total stranger and sometimes somebody that you love very dearly. So come to me means he's calling us, and as was said eloquently this morning, to the cross. And take my yoke. And those of you that know what a yoke is, he was a carpenter. He was a carpenter's son. They built yokes, and the yokes are to help the oxen connect to each other, or to be able to, in some cases, teach a baby oxen by one that masters it, and the other yoke pulls the baby oxen to teach them how to plow, right? And so he was a master, not just a carpenter, but the yoke is a way to, he takes on as the master, and we have a yoke around ourselves that's burdened. He says, my yoke is easy. If you come to me, I'll take your burden. So for me, it is a matter of taking to the cross. And I brought this cross so that you could touch it and feel it and pass it around. This is from Israel. When my husband was confirmed as a Catholic, and was it 2009, Deacon Klingman? We went to Israel, maybe 2010. I can't remember, 2009 or 10. Okay, you were there with him, so that's why I led to you. We were on the pathway to the vigil in April, but we were going to Israel in February, and Father Louis said, you know, maybe, now this doesn't mean you get out of the vigil, he says to Bill, but maybe we can have you confirmed in Israel, because you've been going to Mass with Camille for 20-something years, so we'll see if we can arrange that. But you still have to go to the vigil, absolutely. You still have to finish the course, absolutely. So Bill was brought into the church in the Sea of Galilee. So this cross he selected, and I just want you all to be able to picture it while we go through it. So come to me means come to me, have a relationship with me. I have a yoke that I will take all your burdens. So remember back in the days when he talked to the people about their burdens, the Israelites were dealing with the Pharisees had codified the Mosaic law so much that they had 365 new rules and 250 commandments, and they were burdened with how do we be Christians and carry all these 600 rules that the Pharisees told us to do? And Jesus says, but my way is to love and to serve and to know I'll bring you rest. And rest may be through the sacrament of baptism, through the sacrament of marriage, through the sacrament of the holy healing rites. It could be the sacrament of confirmation. It could be penance. It could be any of those. But come. Okay, so the invitation to come, you got it, you're here. Okay? Now when you leave here, he's saying be a disciple. What does that mean? I can't answer that. I'm trying to find my own way, okay, and I'm still working on it. But one way was to grab onto hope and the pathways of hope. When I picked up pottery, and God being a potter, it's a very messy business dealing with human beings and trying to make them what they are, so I always have to wear a little, hope I don't mess up the sound, little apron. When I told the group 2 years ago about pottery, I brought a big piece of clay that had cracked. And I said, and we all are cracked today, right? Yeah. Raise your hand if you're not. So we brought a big piece of clay that was cracked, and we let everybody take the hammer and crack it some more. We made a mess of it. But life is messy, humans are messy. And clay comes from the word humus, which is the earth, okay? So that's why clay has such meaning in a lot of ways. So we took a piece of clay, and clay comes in all colors. Clay is white, clay is red, clay is black. This happens to be red speck clay. So once cooked, it'll have little specks in it. But clay comes in all kinds of things, and if anybody wants a piece of clay, you're welcome to take a piece of clay too. But when clay dries, what we did last time, and I brought a piece just in case any of you were pissed and you wanted to have it out. You know, everybody's got a little something. You know, then God can take it. He can take anger. He can take all your anger, bring it to the cross. But we brought it and we cracked it all up, and we took all the pieces that we had and we put them back in a bowl, and I let it sit for 30 days, and it got wet and it got back to its original. And then I dried it out and I put it back on the wheel. And this was the result of everybody that came 2 years ago. And so after I made the picture for Trish and Carol to keep in the office and be able to bring to the future Come to the Wells, I carved everyone's pain and suffering into it. I didn't know what everybody's secret is. It's not my business to know why we all come here, but we come here because we're cracked. So I carved butterflies and other things in the vase. So as I finished it, I prayed for everybody, just like I will pray for all of you in the next piece of pottery that I carve. So I'll let everybody kind of look at that. But when God created us, we're a little piece of clay, big piece of clay, tall piece of clay, fat piece of clay, skinny piece of clay, white, black, red. I mean, we could be all things. And when we're formed, we're in this womb. You know, like our mom, this is a womb. And as a baby, we really can't see much because we're in the womb. And when we come out, what God really wants us to do is see that there's so much else. But the jar is a symbol of we have limits, like mine was. I thought I was supposed to be a mother. I had this limit. It was until God said, get out of your jar. Go to another place, you know, and let me work on you. But what clay does when in the Bible, that we're a piece of clay and God's the potter. I couldn't even imagine being a potter like God. But we're constantly being molded. And then something happens. He molds us back. Molds us back. Life is that way. But he keeps working us. And the water, if the clay starts to get dry, we add water, and I have some water here, but I'm not going to do that for you. But the clay starts to dry like this, we add water. And water is, in the Bible, is considered the Word of God. Reading the Scripture, being with God, praying with God. So water, in the baptismal sense, in the blessing sense, but you can't stay in a place that you're full of limits that you can't view the world. You really have to get into a place that you can see. And not just in the literal sense of being able to see, but to see what God's will is for you. And that takes the soul and the eyes, not just the eyes. Got it? So the potter in God can take the anger, and I'm leaving this piece up, so in case anybody wants to come and bust it up, you can't. I promise I'll clean it up, I promise. The come to me, I lost my train just for a second. Hang on one second. When I finished, I was working at the hospital, and it was 2005, and I was ready for a change, not because I didn't love my job, but it was very busy. But I was watching my parents start to fall and needing rides to Walmart and trying to get to Walmart before 8:15, because that's when Rosewood would get their van there and they'd take up all the carts with wheels. You know, they had this time frame. So it was just kind of, and I think some of you can appreciate that. I left the job because I knew there was something else that God wanted me to do, and it was to help take care of Mom and Dad. Went to a part-time job, and I journaled about all this stuff. Like, God, I'm a nurse, man. I didn't know about that Medicare doesn't pay for this and that, and I'm a nurse, and I didn't know about this. I mean, what are these poor people to do? And so I took that knowledge and put it in a book. And that's the one I have on sale in the back room. If anybody wants one, please do. If not, you can get it at Crossroads. It's called Purses and Shoes for Sale. And it's about the joys and challenges of caring for elder parents, which I've now been doing for 12 years. My dad has Alzheimer's. He's in the late stage of Alzheimer's. May not make it to Christmas. Mom died about 4 years ago. She did not have Alzheimer's. She talked up until the last breath, telling us exactly what to do for Dad, and I'm glad of that. And so I wrote that book, and I also gave my service to Hospice of Acadiana, which I think we have some folks here, yes. And how that happened was my mother and father-in-law both died with Hospice of Acadiana, and they came into the house, and I never saw so many people be so wonderful. I never saw that. I never saw so many volunteers come into the house. They helped us prepare for the death. They helped us know how to take care of Jane and Doug. They did the same thing for my mom. And so I said, well, I should volunteer for them, and started in 1998. And was going back to school at the time and working on my dissertation. And I thought, well, I should do my dissertation on dying, on interviewing these hospice patients on their life. And so I did. And I worked on that for about 4 years. So, you know, the thought of taking difficult subjects like infertility, like the loss of a child, like the loss of a spouse, dying from suicide, the loss of a friend, that none of these are easy things that we have to deal with, but somehow we have to find a way that we can be a disciple of our experience and help someone else through maybe a similar thing. Nobody can understand our own experience because it's individual, and it's an individual relationship, and it's different than any other relationship. But maybe there's some hope that you can take what you're doing and grab onto the rope and see if there's somebody else that wants to catch that rope. In closing, I wanted to also say, I have the cross floating around. I didn't let you see this. You still floating around? Okay, good. Good. This is a glow-in-the-dark cross. My grandmother gave it to me when I was like 5. It still glows in the dark. It's at my bedside. I didn't let this float around because I was afraid one of you might keep it. That's what I thought. Looks like some thieves in this room right now. I'm just kidding. What we are called to do most is to bring God to others. And how we do that is through love and service and prayer. And if you can take whatever's in your heart today and figure out how you can love someone more, or how you can serve someone more, or how you can be your own person because of the gift that God gave you. And it may not feel like a gift some days, but His will is our gift. It's just hard to see. This cross has stayed with me since I'm 5 years old. It's at my bedside every night. If my grandmother ever knew that something so simple would be so important to me, she would just be flipping in her grave knowing that I'm still carrying around all she could afford.
Thank you for joining us today for this part 3 of the 3-part series of Come to the Well for those who've lost loved ones.